Hey everyone. So a couple of you have been asking me to show you all some of my settings in Raceflight 1. So let's get into it. Alright, so on the corner here of Raceflight, you can see my flight controller version and my configurator version. Configurator is 326 and firmware is 343. Yesterday I tried updating to 419, which is the newest hype train, and I flew 13 batteries and couldn't get it to feel the way 343 felt. So I highly encourage you all to not to be timid in like upgrading the firmware or downgrading if need be. Alright, so let's get into my settings here. In the PID tuning channel, here are my PIDs. The PIDs are bumped up from stock. I think they all come 30%. With it that low, it kind of feels a little like I'm skating on ice in a way. So raising the P's definitely helps getting it locked in, and then raising I and D to taste also was an improvement. So let's see here. Next thing I'll show you is my TPA. So feel free to press pause and take a look at what I have going on here. TPA for P, K, and I. Pretty much exactly the same as Blackbird FPV's or Wild Willie's TPA. I have turned off these smart curve switches. Basically that adjusts your TPA kind of like a little bit above or below whatever you set it, and I don't want that. I want the TPA to be exactly the curve that I set it in my profile. I felt like that kind of helped some of the wobble in the FPV footage, in the GoPro footage as well. Cool. If you come back up here, you can see I have RC smoothing at 1, which is basically 0. I don't like the way it feels. I like to just have my rates be my rates. RC smoothing kind of affects the way the very last little bit of the stick, and it can actually kind of help you out if you have a lot of bounce back from flipping really fast. So if you have my PIDs and you kind of have an issue with that, maybe try raising up RC smoothing to like 20 or 30, and that might help you. Cool. ESC smoothing, I just have that off. I don't feel like I need it. Next, we have some of my let's see here, some of my filter settings. Got some filter settings for the D term. So roll is 65, pitch 65, yaw 55. The higher this number, the less filtering on the D term, and the lower the number, the less filtering on the D term. I think default it's at 55 across the board. Not quite sure. I haven't changed it in a long time. Probably like 2 months, something like that. Here are my rates. Pretty much the same rates as Wild Willie, and probably pretty similar to Johnny FPV rates as well. I like the way it feels around the center stick, and yeah, it's just very organic. So feel free to copy that. That might help you out a lot. Now the last part is the most complex part of all of it, is the filtering settings. So when you're tuning a quad, typically the first thing you want to do is adjust the filters and then tune your PIDs. I think a lot of people kind of work backwards, and they do their PIDs first and then their filters, and they end up not being happy, or their motors get super hot. So I suggest, tuning your filters first, and this is the filter settings. I think it's pretty much close to what the normal setting is. yaw averaging, I highly suggest most, if not all of you, just put that to 0, and maybe start with your filters at normal. And the key is to try and get filtering as low as possible, without getting a bunch of vibrations in your GoPro footage, and also without your motors getting too hot. So normally I usually put some fresh props on a nice and sunny day, and I kind of fly maybe in a straight line, and then get a feel for things as well, and come back and check the GoPro footage and see if, when I was flying in a straight line, if there was any wobbles or crazy oscillations. And also when I came and landed, I would check the motor temperature as well. And between the GoPro footage, the motor temperature, and the way it felt, is how I decide how low or how high the filter needs to be. Now we're going to get into my secret sauce, and I'm going to show you what my particular filtering is. This filtering that you see here on the screen is not actually the filtering that my quad is using. If we go into the console and you type DUMP, and you scroll up more to the top, we're looking for the filter type and what it's set at. So, alright, so filter type 1 equals 1. That basically means that I am not using the filters that you just saw. Yours probably says set filter underscore type 1 equals 0, which means you're using the filters in the PID tuning tab. If you change it to set filter type 1 equals 1, you're going to be using a different kind of filter, which is kind of like a dynamic noisy filter. And when I first tried this, it was pretty much like mind-blowing how much nicer the quad felt and flew. So yeah, I highly suggest giving that a shot. You may or may not like it. It's worth a try. All you have to do to change it is type in set filter underscore type 1 equals 0 or 1, depending on what you want to use. Yeah, so that's pretty much the main gist of how my quad is set up. If you have any questions, just comment on this video and or send me a message on my channel, and I'll get back to you all as soon as possible. And happy flying!